So now if life was meant to be happy, it begs the question, who would do the meaning? That is, who would mean it to be happy? Or, to put it in other terms, who sets the agenda? And the answer is God. God sets the agenda. You know, one of the things that we cannot believe at all, that most people can't believe, is the most powerful promise of God. God's most extraordinary promise, what I call in the book, the startling truth that will stun the world. And the startling truth that will stun the world is God's famous statement, said many, many times, through the voice of many, many people. I am with you always, even unto the end of time. See, ladies and gentlemen, I don't want to turn into an evangelist here today, but I'm here to share with you some fundamental truths that will cause you to be happier than God, and here they are. Fundamental truth number one, there is a God. I promise you. Fundamental truth number two, God's statement, I am with you always, even unto the end of time, is literally true. Literally true. That is, there is not a moment in your life that God is not with you. Not a moment. And when you know that, you get, wow, I can plug into God stuff any minute of my life. But people preach that gospel and do not live it. That is, people think that, wouldn't it be nice if that were true, but and then they bring up, by the way, all sorts of evidence to indicate that how could it be true? If God was with us, why would we have happened to us the things that happened to us? And we judge by appearances. Judge not by appearances. And we will talk a bit later today, if we have time. By the way, it's explored in the book in depth, so if we miss a few things, it's all in the book. But hopefully we'll get to that part of the book that describes and explores, well, if that's true, Neil, why do bad things happen to good people? Why do we have Katrina? Why do we have Darfur? Why do we have Iraq? Why do we have what we have? And that question is addressed, so you don't think that we're trying to smooth it over. But for the purposes of this conversation for now, let's just table that and continue moving forward with the idea that God is with you. I am with you always, even unto the end of time. In order for that statement to have any power in your life, you would have to believe that there is a thing called God, believe that you have a personal relationship with that thing called God, and begin to come to some deeper understanding of what that thing that we call God, Allah, Brahman, Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever, what that is. What is that? What's that stuff? Many, many people who have a hard time with the word God start coming around to my way of thinking when I give them a simple other word to substitute for the word God. But before I go into that, remind me where I was, a substitute word for the word God. But before I move into that, this word from our sponsor. Yes, darling.
I have this burning desire to know this. When we come into this lifetime, you say we create everything, but how much of it is coming from our karma? You know, when we come into
no
this
such thing
life,
as karma. Karma does not exist.
Don't we have a path that we chose before we got here?
Nothing is predestined. We have an objective, but not a path. We have a desire, but not a requirement. Can you hear the nuancical difference? So predestination doesn't exist. We don't sit here and say, oh, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to be an artist in the 21st century, and I'm going to paint with blues and yellows only, a brand new art form, and I'm going to live on the west coast of the United States, and I'm going to have 3 kids, and whatever the hell you think that the path is. That's not how it works, in my understanding. What does happen is that the soul has a desire to experience and express itself in a particular way, at a particular juncture along the pathway that we call, in our language, time. And if I could use an analogy, it's like you have all the colors on your palette, but you have not painted the picture yet. So you can paint the picture any way you want, but the colors on your palette represent the desire of the soul in a particular incarnation. For instance, in this incarnation, for me, I'm clear now. I've been clear for a while, that I came here to experience myself as that aspect of divinity called wisdom and clarity. There are a lot of things I'm not. I'm not patience, I promise you that. I'm not always understanding. I'm not always kind. I'm sorry to have to report, but it's true. I'm not always the most sensitive person. And other things that maybe for another lifetime. But there are two things that I am. I am wisdom and clarity, and I am that, I promise you. Even if when I get done teaching, I turn into a babbling idiot, which often happens. But while I'm doing this work, I know exactly what's going on. So I can be running around the house, having a very bad weekend, just things are crazy, and but the phone will ring, and it's that conference call I've got to take to New York with 300 people on the phone to talk about something, in spiritual, and all of a sudden, ever had that experience of yourself where you just drop into your higher place, even though 5 minutes before you're running around, you can't even figure out how to pay the phone bill? That's when you're in your place of natural beingness. That's when you are moving with the flow of why you came here. But how it looks specifically, the soul does not decide. So I want to disabuse you of any notion that you may have that before your birth, your soul said, okay, I'm going to be 6 feet tall, I'm going to have blonde hair, I'm going to have 3 kids, I'm going to live in Canada, I'm going to be an artist or a policeman or whatever the hell you think, and it's all predestined. That none of that is true. But what might be so is that your soul might say, in this lifetime, I want to experience myself as, I'll make it up, compassion. Hence, you have a predilection to do that. One of my many wives had a wonderful predilection to, she's laughing, but it's true. She had a predilection to compassion and caringness. I call this the signature of the soul. And the signature of her soul was compassion. And she was a nurse, and a wonderful nurse. She is, not was. And she was a visiting nurse for a while, and I used to go with her. When we were courting, I used to drive her around in the middle of the night and take her on emergency calls. And it was a wonderful time of our lives. And I remember her patients would say, when they would call the home health service that she worked for, I want my Nancy. Don't send that Louise lady. I want Nancy. They all wanted Nancy. Because Nancy was the one that, she was a superb, and is a superb caretaker. Just a superb caretaker. When she walks into the room, the space feels cared for. You understand what I'm trying to tell you? Now, that's the signature of her soul. Now, she didn't decide before she came here, I know I'll be a nurse for Rogue Valley Medical Center in Ashland, Oregon. It's not like that. But she carried the signature, and no matter what she did, somehow or another, she would paint that picture, because on her palette were the colors of compassion, caring, and all that. And the picture she painted was home health care nurse. That's how are you clear now how it works?